be talking about ketamine and the treatments and all of that. We're with Renew Ketamine Infusion, the folks from there, Dr. Justin Yamek and Dr. Tanya Dahl. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Good morning.
So, from the start, let's talk about ketamine. This is the thing, hey, I see this in energy drinks, I see this, what is ketamine all about, and what are you guys doing at your clinic?
Yeah, so ketamine is actually a medicine that has been FDA approved since the 1970s. Traditionally, more commonly used in the hospital setting for, things like sedation in the operating room. The use of ketamine to treat patients with chronic mood or pain disorders such as anxiety and depression, that is kind of an interesting story how that popped up. So there were patients that were going in for anesthesia, patients that had struggled with anxiety and depression in the past. And after they came out of anesthesia, were actually feeling days, weeks of kind of relief from those symptoms.
Okay.
And so that's when people started looking a little deeper into ketamine and how can it be used in other ways. And a lot of research has been done now showing that it's actually very effective in treating patients with chronic pain and chronic mood disorders.
Okay, and so that's how we know it works. I mean, we've had there's been studies, like you say, it's been approved, but it was approved for one thing and then it kind of jumped over to another one. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so I mean, there's an enormous amount of clinical evidence and real evidence in terms of trials that have been done proving ketamine's efficacy. A lot of these trials have been on patients that are very sick, that are resistant to other treatment modalities. So these aren't just your, I'm a little bit depressed, let me try ketamine as the first line therapy. These are patients that have tried and failed multiple therapies, and that's when ketamine's actually been proven to be really effective for them.
Now, the ketamine is one thing, but it also comes with psychotherapy and other kind of support, right? We're not just handing somebody some pills and walking them out the door, right?
Right, so the process would be that you go through an induction series with us, and so you would come into the clinic for 6 infusions over about 2 to 3 weeks. And so ketamine is a great medicine in itself, but it's not a silver bullet, and what we do is we actually supercharge the effects of it when we combine it with psychotherapy. So you are able to kind of integrate the experiences that you're having while you're going through the infusion process with the psychotherapist, and you're able to kind of process that on a deeper level.
Okay, so walk me through the spectrum of people who are candidates to come in and get the ketamine treatments.
Yeah, so I mean, there's 2 main subgroups. One subgroup is patients with chronic pain, and then another subgroup is patients with chronic mental health conditions. There's a huge overlap in those 2 things, and I won't go into the details of that, but those are the 2 big subgroups. Most of our patients are patients with chronic mental health issues. These are patients with anxiety, depression, PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Those are probably the primary ones.
Okay.
And all of these patients have tried and failed either psychotherapy or pharmacotherapy. And they come to us because nothing else seems to be working. And that's where ketamine's really been shown to be superior to really any other thing out there.
Okay, so are we talking about ketamine only if other things have failed, or can it be the first try at something?
Yeah.
Well, so it has been studied as kind of being very effective in the patients that are treatment resistant to all the other options.
Okay.
But if you look at the other options, they are not very effective kind of on their own, and they come with a lot of side effects. So if you're taking an antidepressant every day, you're having weight gain, insomnia, some people even become suicidal on antidepressants. And so we are also there as an option for people that don't want to take a daily medication. And so we have treated patients with mild anxiety, mild depression who don't want to be on a daily medicine, and they've had a lot of relief.
Okay, so the ketamine myths, I guess we'll talk about that. Some people, this is some sort of drug. I see it in, I get energy drinks and things like that. Yeah. So where is it? What are the concerns that people have? How are people abusing ketamine, and since it's getting this kind of bad rep for some folks, right?
Yeah. I hope you're not seeing the energy drink, because that would be illegal. So it is a controlled substance that has to be prescribed by a doctor. So I think your point brings up something interesting. Ketamine can be abused recreationally. However, it's all about the context that it's delivered.
Okay.
And so for us, patients don't go home with the ketamine. They come to our clinic in a controlled environment, supervised by doctors. Dr. Dahl and myself are in there the entire time with the patient. They come for a fixed amount of sessions, and then they go home. And so we actually, not only is that setting in and of itself kind of, it's unlikely to get addicted to it, but there's actually a lot of evidence to support that ketamine can be used to treat addiction in and of itself.
Okay.
And so we have yet to see any real clinical evidence or real evidence to show that ketamine is addictive when given in that context.
Okay. I go in, maybe I get the treatment, I'm a patient. How long should I expect to be under the treatment of ketamine? Is it something that's going to be multiple doses or one dose, or then I'll be free from it and they'll have some long lasting, or is it something I can continue to renew?
Yeah, so there's two main parts of the treatment. The first part being called induction, which is that 6 series infusions over 2 to 3 weeks. It's very high intensity treatment. Then we go into a maintenance phase, and that's really as needed. So depending on how severe your symptoms have been, whether you come back for maintenance or not is kind of patient dependent. And so we do have some patients that we've treated through the induction series that still feel great and have never needed to come back 6-8 months later. We do have some that are a little more severe, and so patients will schedule monthly to come in for maintenance infusions, and so it's just really patient dependent.
Now, are there new phases or new possibilities for ketamine, and kind of as we learn more about it? I know we've talked about a little bit about clinical trials. What are some of the maybe possibilities that are out there for other that is not quite there yet?
I mean, I think it kind of dovetails off of where the whole psychedelic movement is going in general in terms of clinical trials. Some interesting things that I'm aware of is clinical trials looking for spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, chronic headaches and migraines, which is a patient population that we really haven't been able to do much for. And then also for like marriage therapy, couples counseling, which is a whole new field that really hasn't been studied before, to kind of like expedite that process.
Okay. And to allay some fears, is ketamine addictive per se? Is it, if I'm going to come out of there, I'm going to go, man, I need some more ketamine.
No, not at all, not at all. So again, like what Dr. Yannick was saying, when used the way we are using it in the setting we are using it, absolutely not addictive. You don't have to worry about any of that. And you know what's really nice about ketamine is using it as an alternative to treat chronic pain, aside from using the more addictive medications like the opiates and using benzodiazepines for anxiety, and those are well known to be very addictive. So ketamine is very safe.
Those are just blockers. They're really not really actual long-term treatment.
I mean, that's
right?
the core issue, right? So like the whole idea of ketamine is that it can actually help you heal from the condition, where almost every other pharmacotherapy is really just a Band-Aid, right? Whether that's for pain or whether that's for depression.
Pain instead of actually. And so is ketamine kind of like doing some sort of reset to the mind? Is that how I can say it?
Yeah, so it's working on a cellular level in the brain and the spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system. Yeah, and so what it does is it works on the cells to create new proteins that come in and can kind of work their magic healing, and that's what they do. Yeah.
Okay, and augmented therapy versus traditional therapy. Kind of go into a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, therapy in and of itself is an incredibly effective modality, and we're strong believers in the power of therapy. However, ketamine, when combined with therapy, can really be an accelerated process where patients oftentimes feel like they get stuck in therapy, they don't open up fully. Ketamine allows you to gain access into maybe more repressed memories or things that you don't typically feel comfortable talking about, and that tends to be a much more accelerated healing process.
Yeah, and is it kind of like, you know, when someone's taking maybe some mental health issues in terms of bipolar, where they're getting that, but they're also getting that therapy, right? So that's kind of the supportive angle of that. This isn't a cure-all.
Right.
Totally, yeah.
Totally.
It is not a cure-all, but we think the two, when combined, have a real synergistic effect, and that's why we think it's so important to do both, not just one.
And what's the typical range of a patient? If I come in there, how long is my, like I kind of talked about this, but how long should I expect the treatments to last? And does insurance cover it and things like that?
So the process is you're going to come in 6 times over 2 to 3 weeks. And when you come into our clinic, it's a very spa-like, tranquil clinic. It's very private. It's just Dr. Yannick or myself with a registered nurse and the patient at any time. Each appointment's an hour and a half. The infusion will go through an IV line about 40 minutes. And so that's kind of what you can expect in the actual process.
Yeah, and it lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks, the induction where the 6 infusions go on.
And Dr. Yannick, how did you get into this in the first place? Were you doing traditional medicine and kind of fell into this?
Yeah. We both met in residency. We're both ER doctors, board certified ER doctors. We both still work in the emergency room, to be clear. I did a pain medicine fellowship, and long story short, I had a pretty significant subset of patients in the chronic pain space that wouldn't get better with a lot of the traditional therapies I was using. And that's when, in about 2019-20, I started to hear about the kind of the psychedelic renaissance in terms of traditional medicine, how it can be used, and started to use ketamine on certain patients in the chronic pain space. And it just became so clinically obvious to me that this worked better than almost anything else I had tried. And then we kind of met in the middle and decided we wanted to create a space that was just optimized to deliver this medicine to the right people.
Okay, Dr. Dahl, kind of your story as well?
Right, so I got interested in using ketamine more for a mental health more for the mental health perspective. So what I found was going through the COVID-19 pandemic in the emergency department, it was really just a very devastating time for everybody. And so patients were coming in isolated, scared, alone, depressed, and they had nowhere to go, and they were coming to me in crisis. And so I was looking for an opportunity to be able to treat patients more proactively instead of being reactive when they're in crisis. And so that's kind of why I got involved with wanting to use ketamine for these patients.
All right, well, Doctors Yal and Yannick, thank you so much for joining us. Renew Ketamine Infusion. We have the information on the screen for people who want to get more and know more about it, make an appointment, or go to the website and just do a little research on your own. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.